live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. And that means, of course, that you're on the lifeboat. People, first of all, before we get rolling, we are really having problems like you would not believe. Apparently there was no internet access anywhere in the environs where I live. So the normal equipment that we use is unavailable. I'm not seeing any of your text messages or any of your comments. So I apologize if I'm not responding to you guys. Mark's going to see what he can do to monitor that as we go. And then hopefully maybe by the end, I'll have internet access. As of right now, I'm doing this through a phone, and hopefully all goes well. I want to thank everybody. We got a lot of comments last night. You know what? When you guys do the whole comment thing, good things happen to the lifeboat. And last night, after we did the inside baseball thing where I talked to you a little bit about the number of views, I don't know where we're at, but like 360 or something, which is really a good number, for the size of the audience that we have. So just want to appreciate all of you. I really do. That's from the heart. You guys tuning in and doing this, especially after our little hiatus, it warms my heart. It really does. So I wanted to thank you all for that. And I want to talk about addiction today. There are a lot of new people on the lifeboat, and which is great. Hopefully they're all going to hit that subscribe button. And then that other button for the bell for notifications so that every time we go live, they will know that we're doing it. It's the YouTube stuff. But in the, so for all the new people who are coming here, I know a lot of you guys have heard me talk about addiction a million times, but I got a lot of emails last night from some people that really would like to quit doing what they're doing, and had a lot of questions. And, I take a lot of stuff for granted because of how long we've been doing this. But I want to talk a little bit about addiction, the addiction process and things like that, because I think there's this preconceived notion a lot of people have in their head, right? What is a drug addict? What is drug addiction? And very oftentimes we can convince ourselves that we're not drug addicts because we compare ourselves to people that we see on street corners holding signs that say, help, anything, anything helps, desperate, homeless, whatever you see for the signs. And that's sort of the image that people get in their heads. Mark used to talk about a billboard in his town that showed a doctor, a lawyer, a construction guy, a cop, and the caption on it said, which one's the drug addict? And addiction, I think, even with that, which is a great billboard, right? Very cool concepts. Even with that, we're doing it a disservice because addiction goes far beyond drugs, right? There are people who are addicted to food. There are people who are addicted to gambling. We've had numerous people that have had problems with pornography and things of that nature. You can get addicted to the internet. You can get addicted to video games. The concept of addiction is something that until you sort of get a handle on, it's difficult to start fighting this battle. The process of addiction is really quite simple. It's when the brain derails and you start, the brain starts feeling like what you're doing is a matter of life and death. I mean, that really is what it comes down to, right? The reward center of our brain was designed to ensure that we do things that benefit us as a human being and as a species, and we continue to do it. So, what nature, God, whatever you want to go with, that the human mind, what the human mind determines as important, it rewards you for doing, right? So taking care of your kid, working hard, right? These are normal things that normal people get rewarded for doing. You get up in the morning, you drink your coffee and you go to work and you give them 8 hours of hell, man. You get in there and just knock it to death, right? You work your can off, you get through the project or the work day or whatever it is that is assigned to you. And at the end of that day, there's a reward that the brain goes, you did a good job. I would like you to continue doing a good job. So for that reason, I'm going to release a drug into your system. Because for all intents and purposes, people, that's exactly what it is. When the brain goes and you get a shot directly into the bloodstream, comes right from the brain that says, a job well done. You've done well and I'm proud of you. And the next thing you know, you get this warm, fuzzy feeling. And we've talked in the past about how certain things, you really get an awful lot of that feel-good chemical. You go into a hospital and the nurse says, here's your baby boy, or here's your baby girl. And the second you touch that child, your brain is going to flood you with so much feel-good chemical that it's astounding, right? Because they want to make sure that you realize from Jump Street that this is really important stuff. Taking care of this child, rearing this child, loving this child, there's nothing more important. And the brain is going to make sure that you understand that. If I could go back about 30 years, the same thing happened to me, but it happened not with the birth of a child. Not that that wasn't a great moment, because it was, but it happened the first time I stuck a needle in my arm. The brain did the same thing. And it said, this is the most important thing you've ever done. There's a really great book that talks about this phenomenon. And the guy uses a series of numbers and he talks about the micro whatever. He's actually talking about the amounts of feel-good chemical issued into the body. For sake of easy understanding of what I'm talking about here, let's just say that when you get that child handed to you, you're getting 90 to 100 units of that feel good, just that amazing feeling. Here's 100 units of it. And you will know that you got 100 units of it. You just get the love of the child, the overwhelming feeling of everything in life being perfect. The first time you become intimate with somebody that you really care about. Right? You get into the bedroom and you do that, and it might be 90, right? It might be 95. It's amazing. All of these things is the brain ensuring that we're going to procreate, we're going to take care of our kids, we're going to work hard, we're going to eat well, right? You eat a good meal, you get the same kind of thing. The brain goes, here you go. And you just get that warm fuzzy. You ever just eat an amazing meal and you sit back just so contented, like everything in life is perfect? That was just awesome, right? That was great. Well, what happens when the brain starts doing that at the absolute wrong moment? The answer to that is addiction, right? Because you now feel as if a child is born every single day or 3 times a day. Every time that needle breaks your skin, every time that straw goes up your nose, every time you crack that drink, you're going to get that same feel-good chemical. It's going to flood your body. And all of a sudden, the worst behavior in the world, things that can kill you, are going to be reinforced as if they were the most important and the most beautiful thing that you'd ever done. And there are certain drugs that heighten this. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to hammer on this today. I had several emails, I think 3 emails and a couple of comments from people who are struggling with methamphetamine. And as the people on the boat have heard me talk about before, methamphetamine is really unique in that you're going to, as opposed to the drug itself, right? Being that thing that really sort of hooks you, far more than that. It's that that drug makes your brain release feel-good chemicals as the high. So I hope that makes sense. So you take an opiate, you have an opiate receptor in the brain, right? The opiate gets sucked in, pain medication now floods your body. And if anything hurt you, that goes away. If you have spiritual pain, that goes away. If you have emotional pain, if you have anything that's bothering you, it goes away. And then you get the feel-good chemicals of, look, what you just did is important. Feel good, don't you? Here, feel a little better. Feel a little better. And that process starts the whole, rabbit hole to addiction. Well, with methamphetamine, there isn't that meth receptor in the brain. That's not what's happening. When the meth gets into your body, what it's doing is releasing feel-good chemicals anyway. Then on top of that, your body is going to say, what you just did is the most important thing you've ever done. And it just continues to reinforce it. But it's such a difficult drug to get off because on top of the negative reinforcement, right, that, the positive reinforcement for negative behavior, you also get that rush of brain chemicals that hooks you. And again, let's say 90 units get put into the body when you are handed your child. Well, when you do a shot of methamphetamine, let's say you do it with a syringe, you might be looking at 1,100, right? So in the mind's eye, this is so much more important than your kid. And that's tragic, but it's a fact. It's so much more important than, your significant other, the love of your life, your soulmate. Not way more important than that. However, if you're intimate with that person, that also gets exacerbated. So very oftentimes people who abuse methamphetamines find themselves in really toxic relationships, but in their mind, it's the perfect relationship. This person is, the most important thing in the world, aside from the drug, and all of these things just continue to reinforce this. This is your brain working against you. And one of the emails I got today was just, I don't know, it was kind of amazing because the person said to me, I feel really guilty having this conversation with you because, you were on heroin and that stuff was physically addicting. And, the term he used, I'm sure I could get canceled for saying, but he used a term that is very often used to say, I'm less than tough, right? I'm less than courageous. He said, I feel like a great big, right? Because, what I'm doing is just meth. And I tried to explain to this individual in an email that no, first of all, I don't care what you're doing. If you've been doing it for 10 or 15 years and your mind has been reinforcing how important this is to you, this is why I think the lifeboat and groups like the lifeboat are so damn important. I've said many times on the boat that if you try to explain this stuff to somebody that's never been there and done that, it's almost impossible to make somebody understand this, right? Because what is their response every single time? Why don't you just quit, right? It's bad for you. Why don't you just quit? Well, you can't explain to somebody what it feels like to fight your brain. The only way that someone is going to understand that is if, in fact, they too have had that fight. If they over the course of their life have been in a solid no-lie fist fight with their own brain, then when you say, boy, I'm having a real hard time quitting, the response is usually, yeah, yep, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, right? And this is one of those things I was trying to hammer home to this individual today is that I don't care if it's meth, I don't care if it's heroin, I don't care if it's coke, I don't care if it's gambling. We all have a malfunctioning reward center of the brain. And you know what you call it when there's part of your body that is malfunctioning and doing it in such a way that it is literally counterintuitive or counterproductive to everything that makes you healthy. Do you know what you call that? You call that a disease. True story. That's a disease. And addiction, whether you like it or not, is a disease. Now, this isn't Captain Tommy Scoville's opinion. Well, I guess most assuredly it is my opinion. but it's also the opinion of about 95% of everybody that has ever gone to college long enough to get an MD or a PhD. Anyone who ever studied this. And in the previous incarnation of the lifeboat, I used to apologize for saying that. And I'll be damned if I'm ever going to apologize for saying it again. This is a mental disorder. There's no two ways about it. It doesn't necessarily make you feel good if you're in the midst of it, but it's a stone cold fact. And it's one of the reasons that this is just so damn difficult to deal with. And I know that people get really upset when I use illustrations like this. And I'll be honest, I don't care because it really is kind of important stuff, right? But what it really boils down to is pick any other disease, right? I like to use diabetes anytime I'm doing these illustrations because one form of diabetes is very much a disease of choice, right? You took way too much sugar, you didn't stay in good shape, you got overweight. Now, I'm going to get an email today from someone that says, I was born with diabetes, I didn't do anything wrong. Correct. There's two kinds of diabetes. One of them you're absolutely born with. There's nothing that can be done. And the other type is lifestyle induced. You know, if you are overweight, if your diet is, sort of off skew, and, you drink a lot of sugary stuff, there's a lot of different things that contribute to the development later in life of diabetes. But if you went to somebody and you said, hey doc, this is the problem. I was diagnosed already with diabetes and I've come in here for treatment. When they diagnosed me, I was hypoglycemic. So the glycemic index in my body is lower than it's supposed to be. And I need insulin to bring that up so that I can live a normal life. If the doctor went, no, tough it out. You can do this, right? This is just, it's in your mind. What you need to do is just, say no to this whole, insulin and diabetes thing. Come on, you're stronger than that. You can beat this, right? You would look at the doctor and go, the hell is wrong with you, right? Where did you get your degree? Are Cracker Jacks? Obviously, this is a disease. It's not something that I can just will myself out of. Diseases across the board are things that need to be treated, right? They're not something that willpower alone is ever going to do. And you'll run into people. I'll get an email tonight that said, I did this with nothing but willpower. And the truth of the matter is, no, you didn't. Sorry, you didn't. What you did, whether you realize it or not, is you came up with a plan. And that plan did things like eliminated downtime, stopped hanging out at the places you used to hang out at, right? There is a series of things that you did through the use of sheer determination that you're going to credit yourself for willpower. But the truth is that willpower alone doesn't do it. And, the people that argue that, tell you what, find someone that's trying to quit heroin and say, here's 4 grams of this. I'm going to put that right in front of you on the table. And that's just going to sit there for the next 6 months. Now, willpower yourself to not do that stuff. Does that person exist? I don't know, maybe. I certainly have never met one. Truthfully, I never have. And I have a feeling that if deep down I met that individual, then more than likely he's physically dependent on this substance, but probably not addicted to it. If that sounds like I'm splitting hairs, I'm absolutely not. The physical addiction can happen to absolutely anybody on the planet. And I have watched people become addicted to heroin who then went through the withdrawal sickness and all of that and said, I am never going to go through that again in my life, and just removed that from their drugs that they use on a regular basis. Basically just said, that's it for that. I'm never doing that again. And people will say, yeah, he was just, the way he did that. No, he's not addicted to it, right? The addiction process, very much like diabetes. How many of you know somebody that is 75 to 100 pounds overweight? They drink 14 Coca-Colas a day, right? They nothing but fried chicken. And you look at them and go, how does this cat not have diabetes? Because he doesn't have a predisposition in his body for diabetes. He can abuse the hell out of his body for the rest of his life. More than likely, he or she will die early, right? They're not going to have the lifespan that they could have because that kind of lifestyle is not conducive to old age, right? But you have to have that predisposition in your body so that if myself and that individual, the hypothetical person that I just described, ate the exact same way, did the exact same thing, but I'm predisposed to get diabetes. I got a couple of people in my family who have had it. They developed into diabetes, yada yada. One of us is going to end up diabetic. The other is just going to end up with a lifestyle that's not particularly healthy. Addiction is the exact same way. If you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, right? If you're looking at me doing this video, there's a damn good chance that you were one of those people who had a predisposition to addiction. Does that mean that nothing in the world was going to stop it? There's nothing you could do. You were a junkie the day you were born, and you were going to end up that way. And that's the problem that people have with this argument, is they feel like, well, no, a person gets cancer, there's nothing they can do about that. If you never used drugs, then you were somebody with a predisposition. If that substance never enters his life, what difference does it make? It doesn't mean that he doesn't have that predisposition in his body. What it means is he never put the substance in his body that he was going to get addicted to that fast. I'm hoping this is making sense, right? Because this is the reality of what addiction is. So the question we asked tonight, is addiction ruining your life? It doesn't have to be dope. It doesn't have to be alcohol, right? It could be any number of things. We talked about this. If you've been on the boat for any length of time, you'll probably remember we did a few shows. The largest addicted group on the planet are addicted to food, plain and simple. Here in the good old US of A, is the first generation of people anywhere on the planet where more people are going to die from eating too much than will ever die from starvation. Like in the history of humanity, that's never happened. But because of the readily available food, no one's having to hunt for it. No one's having to grow it, right? You're not going into the garden and saying, boy, I hope I got enough to get me through the winter, right? You're not hunting for your sustenance. Because of that, had the Walmart, and there's enough food in there to take care of you for a long period of time. For that reason, we have developed into a society that very oftentimes people want comfort. That is almost the defining characteristic of human beings. For me, that comfort came in a meal. I would cook it, I would put it in a spoon, right? And then I would inject it, and I would get the painkiller, but then I would also get that comfort feeling of my brain telling me, boy, you're doing great, Tommy, right? Good thinking, well played, you're doing great. This is what you were born to do. And as stupid as that sounds, people, that's literally what's going on. Well, there are the largest group of people on the planet do the same thing with food. You start feeling like you're really having a bad day and things aren't going well. You can get your brain to release feel-good chemicals that are going to make you feel better, right? And instead of getting a needle, you might get a couple of cheeseburgers, or you might get a bag of sour cream and onion potato chips, or head to Popeyes. You understand? It's the same principle. And this is one of the things that gets lost when people talk about addiction. If we did that word association game, right? And it was just me and you in an office, and I said, I'm going to say a word. I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And I said addiction. There's a really good chance a lot of you would spit out your substance of abuse, right? Cocaine, heroin, meth, whatever. I doubt the majority of you would think food. And very often, even people who are addicted to food aren't going to think that, because we tend to look at people and say, the person's got no willpower, he or she eats way too much, and they're ended up overweight because of it, blah, blah, blah. It's an addiction. And I don't care what you're addicted to. I've said this so many times on this show. I know Mark feels the exact same way. We're not an anti-drug channel. I sure as heck am not running an anti-food channel. right? I'm a big fan of everybody eating. I think that's probably a pretty important thing, right? But yeah, right? But please, not a fan of addiction.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out that they can't see me. So yeah,
Yeah, I can't see any of your comments.
Yeah. yeah,
Let's see.
yeah. We're doing pretty good on the comment end of it. Everybody's welcome. We got a couple of new people here that I don't think I've ever seen. Let me see. I think there's one here. We'll touch on that in just a second. I know Virginia's been here before, I believe. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Blue Dazzle's here. Trish is here. Chris Freak's here. Hulk, smash that like button, guys. Smack it down.
You know what's really odd? So to give you guys an idea of what we're working with here, I've got screens everywhere, right? And this is like one of those scenes from science fiction movies where everything goes right and goes down. So I got screens everywhere. Just none of them working. And as Mark started to talk to somebody who's here, I get this ding, like I just got an email, right? And I look down and it says, you'll be shocked to know that apparently there's a lawsuit going on against anybody that was at Camp Lejeune. Well, that popped up, right? That I get about 15 of those emails a day. But I was not at Camp Lejeune. But one of those popped up, and I thought, well, damn, I'm back in business. Unfortunately, that didn't last very long. And so.
You probably just have to reboot your system later on, man. I mean, a lot of times.
The crazy thing is, I actually have a small team of people that right now are running around and checking everything. And if by some chance I was able to pull this off, like that door would quietly open and I would just do the boom and grab one device. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of like squirrel magically appeared the other night when I was outside.
Yeah. That
got a little bit of assistance.
I'm sure you did.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that is going to be the case. But I really wanted to hammer this home to people. And the reason is when you start thinking about addiction as something that plays not 10% of the society, or 15% of the society. When you start going down through, you go, so-and-so would never drink anything in his life. He's just the most focused person in the entire world. He wouldn't drink, he wouldn't do drugs. I mean, all this guy wants to do is be a success. Right? Chances are he's a workaholic, right? There are people who literally get addicted to success. There are people who get addicted to work. There are people that get addicted to everything. And when you understand the concept, and this literally needs to become second nature, and once it does, you will look at the world in a very different lens. Right? Completely look at the world in a very different lens. When you begin to realize that it's a rare day when you come across someone that isn't struggling at some level with a reward center that is given just a little bit too much reward for something that doesn't make sense, even if the stuff's great. You look at the average workaholic, especially if he's not married or she's not married, and they're just really career orientated. And some of the great inventors of our time were people that just, without that addiction, I promise you, some of the coolest devices, the fact that I'm talking to you the way I'm doing right now, there were probably a few workaholics, a few people that were really addicted to the feeling they got from success, that made these things happen. There are addictions that are a lot less unhealthy than others, but our beef is with addiction. Our beef is with the inability for a human being to say, I'm just not going to do that today. That's it. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if you ride 25 miles a day on your bike. It's pretty healthy stuff. But if you've got something that you get up in the morning and you literally can't say, I'm not going to do this today, that's a problem. It really is. And you think, well, exercise. Yeah, well, you get up and you got COVID-19 and you're coughing and you're wearing a mask. Oh, Lord, did you see what I did, Mark? I actually sent the C word. This video just got sent to the land of Oz. No one's going to hear this now.
It's all
right?
good.
There are certain words. People, I don't know if you, and I got to squirrel off on this for a second because when my internet is working, I spend a decent amount of time, especially since I had time off. I look at a lot of other creators and things that they do. And, you want to see how people are putting stuff together, especially since Mark and I are talking about, turning this into a call-in show pretty often. You start looking at things that other people do to build their brand and to build their their little community, and you will see people who are masters of just dropping every single word that the big red button might have a problem with, and they're talking about that country, and they're talking about the guy was covered with that red stuff that comes out of your mouth if you get headbutted. And it's like, I watched an entire video where this person probably eliminated 40 words and did it so smoothly that I'm like, this person must talk like this, during their regular day. They probably just don't ever say anything anymore that could offend any of the algorithms or the sensors or any of the whatever the heck it is. What would monkeys and bananas? What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Grant says he typed in the chat, simple word, benzos.
You know what? Here's the thing with benzos. I'm glad that you read that, Mark, because I have in my life I've abused benzos. I think a lot of people who are addicted to opiates also use benzos, and stupidly as this is, I used to mix them quite often. I never did it the way you hear about people doing it now, where I took 9 milligrams of Xanax, and then I took 80 milligrams of OxyContin. I was always pretty careful, because I knew that when you mix respiratory depressants, that there's a good chance you're going to check out. Right, that's something that kills people really, really quickly. But the biggest problem now with benzodiazepines, and for those of you, if you're brand new to this, benzodiazepine was the drug that replaced barbiturates for a very long time in this country and worldwide. If you suffered from anxiety, or you had stress in your life, or you had difficult time sleeping, the miracle, and that's in air quotes, right? The miracle pill was the barbiturate family. Seconal, Tuinal, Quaaludes, right? All of these drugs that, if you've never done one, just like imagine drinking 21 beers in one pill. Honestly, I mean, that's what really they were like. If you ever saw the film The Wolf of Wall Street, there's a couple of scenes in there where he talks about Quaaludes, which were at one time the most prescribed drug on the planet, was the Quaalude, methaqualone. And then they had a hearing in Congress to discuss why someone would get a prescription for this. And they brought one doctor in after another and said, what would you write a prescription for, Quaaludes? What would be the ailment, or what would be the complaint of the person? And they couldn't find the doctor that could tell them a reason to actually write that prescription. This was because there's nothing that it treats. There really isn't. It was not particularly effective at the things that it did treat. Like originally they talked about it being a sleep medication, and it would knock you out. You could definitely go to sleep, but you had to lay down as soon as you ate it. It was one of those things that you had to, you swallow that pill and then you get ready to go to sleep, because if by some chance you stayed awake for about 15 or 20 minutes after it entered your system, then you weren't going to go to sleep, and you were just going to be a zombie, whose speech would get so slurred that very few people could understand you. And, it was just a really dangerous drug. There were a lot of car wrecks and a lot of really bad stuff that happens because of it. But after the congressional hearing, they said, no more. That's it. There are 2 countries left on planet Earth that will still allow you to get them, right? Quaaludes have been basically drummed off of the face of the earth. There is still a drug called Mandrax, which is it's sort of a Quaalude. It's a very, very similar, almost exact chemical makeup, changed ever so slightly, but they have such a problem with it in South Africa that it's just amazing. But once they got rid of all of this stuff, there were people who had legitimate ailments. They were just getting treated with something that didn't actually work. It just got you high. So people who had stress problems, people who had anxiety disorder, like, let's say you're a public speaker, and 5 years into public speaking, all of a sudden one day you go to get on stage and your heart starts to race like there's no tomorrow, and your palms start to sweat. This is what you do for work. So for those individuals, there needed to be a medication, and that's legit. I'm not saying that this is something that people just abuse. There are a lot of people on this planet that need benzos, that need benzodiazepines, but they're tranquilizers for all intents and purposes. And they replaced barbiturates. And one of the other big reasons, because Seconal and Tuinal and some of the other drugs, phenobarbital, they did have some legitimate medical usage, and some of them are still around. There are still some barbiturates that they still write prescriptions for. But
can I say something real quick, Tommy?
Sure.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, I was on. They're talking about trazodone in the comment section there. I was actually on that for a while. And guys, you don't think you're addicted to something, and I know we've said this probably 1,000 times here, until you're addicted to something, right?
Right.
You just don't even know it. And I didn't even realize until probably a month after I quit taking trazodone that I was addicted to it. It just didn't click in my head because, I knew a lot about opiates at the time. Had almost no knowledge of what a benzo was. And nowadays it's important to know both. Actually, Tommy, I got a picture here I'm going to flash up there. I know you won't be able to see it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But
Right.
it's a picture from Kensington, guys. It's a place in Philadelphia. It is the largest open air
Drug flea market.
Yeah, it's, if you guys have never, just Google it, man, and I'm telling you, you guys will flip out what you guys see. But I'm going to show you guys two different pictures. I'm going to show you guys this one first. Okay? What you're seeing there, guys, is that is a picture of the street, okay? Just taken from somebody's car. And the guy standing there bent over at the hips has probably been standing like that for an hour, if not longer. And what that is, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's the difference between, or like somebody would take a shot of fentanyl and they're going to lay down and they're going to go to sleep, right? I mean, they're just going to kind of nod out. They're not going to do this. What this is trank. It's benzos and opiate, fentanyl, together.
Mixed.
Yeah. And we did a show shortly before we took a vacation there where we timed it. Remember that? It was 19 seconds. The guy still had the foil in his hand and was out.
That was the guy in the car with his girl or his wife. She filmed him.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah, it was a nutty freaking video. But I want you guys to see this one. Now, I'm going to show you this other one because this one, I don't get shocked a whole lot, and I don't think Tommy does much either, and I really wish he could see this one. And I'm sure he can. He'll see it on the replay. But
Yeah.
this woman, and this is from the same street, probably, I think it's the same guy where he was just awake at this point. Yeah, it is. It's the same group of people. So I'm flashing that over, and please, I'm not trying to offend anybody by this, so please don't be offended by this. This woman is injecting this stuff into her breast. Now, I'm not showing any kind of nakedness here. So just put you a little bit at ease there, man. She's got her shirt pulled down and she's, injecting it into her breast. This is what people do. For people that have never seen these kinds of things, it's important to see this. This is what we will do. If you're addicted to something, you will do this. You don't ever think you would, but you do. And it's sad to see, and I hate to even show this kind of thing. I was going to use this one for a thumbnail, but I didn't want to disrespect this person. So I'm actually going to take it off the screen now. I don't like doing that, guys. I really don't. I try to be, respectful of people because they're in a hard place. But people need to see it. And that's why I wanted to show it very briefly and just go on with that. But that's what happens when people mix benzos and opiates. So
Horrible combination.
Yeah.
Horrible combination. From a medical standpoint, anything that is a respiratory depressant, anything that slows down your breathing, and it's not slowing down your breathing just because you got a buzz so you're not breathing as deep. It's literally relaxing the diaphragm, right? Which is pulling the lungs down, which is what's inflating your lungs, and that's what's, making you live. And we've talked about this before, but you can become so relaxed that, if I said to you now, hold your breath, right? Or if I put my hand over your mouth and your nose, in about 20 seconds, maybe 40, depending on how long, you're going to realize that your air is cut off and there's going to be an instant struggle, right? It's like when someone dunks your head underwater in a pool, right? It's funny until it's not. And then, once you realize that there's no air there and you need the next one, you're getting to the surface. Whether you got to kill the person that's touching you, there's that instant moment of terror. When you start mixing drugs that are respiratory depressants, and very often you'll see people they'll drink 3 or 4 beers, which they don't realize very often is a respiratory depressant. And then they're going to mix in some painkillers, a respiratory depressant, and a benzo, and they might even take a little Ambien. And you're probably not going to make it through the night. And if you do, it's not because your tolerance is excellent, it's because you're lucky.
Exactly.
Because
That's
the
luck.
coming where you're not going to you're going to get one of those days where you're going to be so relaxed that if somebody went up and put their hand over your nose and your mouth, you would just sit there. That moment of, good Lord, I need a breath, doesn't come. It's a frightening thing to think about, but it's the truth. And I want to hit something real quick since you guys brought it up. Trazodone is a very, very unusual substance, right? It's one of those drugs that is written for things that it was never intended to be written for, right? Trazodone very oftentimes is written as a sleep medication. And I remember a doctor I was very close with who said to me, Trazodone is not a sleeping pill. It just plays one, right, on TV. That's really not what it was intended to be used for. And it is not a benzo. And there is a very serious misconception. Most people assume it is. A really good rule of thumb is that the last 2 letters of a benzo are almost always AM, right? Diazepam, lorazepam, clonazepam, all of them tend to have that AM ending. Rohypnol was a benzo, a very strong one, roofies, and that was flunitrazepam. They all have that AM ending to the. It's a really good rule of thumb that if someone tries to give you something and it ends in AM, it's a tranquilizer. It's going to be a benzodiazepine. Trazodone, very, very unusual drug. I too was on it. It's because it's not a benzo. They like it in the prison system. They will write it to people who have a hard time sleeping. They'll write it, and they very much use it as if it is a benzodiazepine. So if you go in and you say, I'm having panic attacks, the first thing that they're going to do is give you Trazodone. And 100%.
100%.
Because it's the only thing that they can give you that is going to do very similar things to what a benzo will, but it is not a benzo. Because with few exceptions, in the prison system, they're not handing out benzos. There are people that so badly need them that they get a waiver and they're allowed to take them. And they're usually, they try to keep those people as far away from other people as they can.
Let me come in here just real quick because of the chat.
Sure. Absolutely.
Dan V. I'm not sure if Dan V's ever been here before. I can't remember. If you have Dan, I apologize. I see so many names here. I do apologize for that. But he popped in here about the time we started talking about this, and he was diagnosed bipolar, 2 types of the psychotic features 20 years ago. He says he's been on a lot of medications, but he says he's off all of them now. And yeah, and that's exactly what I said. And I think that and what he said here on the end, that he was on Trazodone, and he said that was the last one that he weaned off of. So
sure, he probably did Seroquel.
He probably did a lot of there's some really heavy stuff that they do with the antipsychotics. Seroquel is another drug that is really, really strong, and it knocks people for a loop. It's also become very vogue to give that for people who really have a sleep disorder, because in small quantities, when used as an antipsychotic, they might write a prescription for 450 to 900 milligrams, where they'll write a prescription for 50 milligrams to somebody that is trying to use it as a sleep medication.
It's kind of strange what Dan said, because I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say that they've used Trazodone for an antidepressant.
I have seen that dished out.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah. That there's a push right now, believe it or not. I just read an article the other day where there are doctors who are experimenting, doing clinical studies right now to use buprenorphine as an antidepressant. So I think anytime they come across anything that works for any segment, like, you go in and you do the interviews, and no matter what you're being treated with, and they'll say, well, are you having any depression? Well, if you get enough people that go, no, amazingly, I'm not getting any, they start looking, for that. What's the magic bullet? What do these 15 people have in common? Well, every one of them's on trazodone. Well, let's go to the people that make it, see if they're willing to bankroll a study, and we'll do a double blind and we'll see what happens, right? I mean, that's usually how that transpires. But depression is such a debilitating, thing for so many people that honestly, I think they probably tried everything. You know what I mean?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Hosta to trazodone and everything in between. If they can come across anything that shows promise, because depression is just, I think about everybody here can relate.
Yeah, and I think what it boils down to is the fact that all these medications we're talking about, at the end of the day, what are they doing? They're causing your brain to release dopamine. And I think that is really that's what's pulling you out of that depression a little bit, at least briefly.
Yep.
I really think that's how and for me, that's how I think about it. But, and when I was in the hospital, guys, just to put it in perspective, they would not give me Suboxone. You know what they were giving me? Phenobarbital and trazodone. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's bizarre. And the other, one of the other things is, if they're not giving you something that's going to get your brain to release feel-good chemicals, and that was especially early on in the treatment of depression, that's what they were going for. Now what they do is they try to keep the brain from sucking stuff back in, right? So they go with these SSRIs. So you get selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So it stops the brain from taking that chemical back in. So now you've got feel-good chemicals, which normally your brain would release, right? And then it would leach back in, right? Be processed out. They're going to put a brick wall up on the inside of the brain so that when your brain releases that serotonin, it hits the wall and comes back.
Makes sense, man. It really does.
Didn't you
and Dr. Jetmore talk about that with his interview?
Yes. Yeah. What a great interview. If you people never saw that, having Dr. Jetmore on was astounding. It's in the top 3 or 4 for me.
100%. Yeah.
Favorite videos that we ever did on the lifeboat. That was that live was just amazing, because this dude was, I read, Mark reads. We do what we can to try to know a little bit about everything, but when it comes to drugs and mental health and whatever, Dr. Jetmore just knows all of it about everything, and he delivers it in such a way. So often when you talk to doctors, and it's not because they're trying to be cool, but they just have so much education that it's very difficult for them to talk to a layperson and make us understand anything. Right? They start, they just spit terms out, and you're like,
it's like a big bowl of word salad. That's what it is. It really is. Correct. And Dr. Jetmore actually thinks about addiction like we do, and that's different too. We don't get that a whole lot. I'm starting to see more of it, I have to say, but Dr. Jetmore has dared. He's on the front edge of that. Honestly. So anyway,
and he just puts things in terms that I think make sense to everybody. It's that was just such a great interview.
We will have him back on too, guys, just so you know.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, he said he would. He said he would. So
he did. He was actually said he would be looking forward to that. I think he loved the boat, because it's as Mark said, this is a guy that number one really cares about addicts, and number two understands them like in a legitimate way, really understands the entire process. And because of that, anytime we do an interview, there's usually 15 minutes before we go, and there's maybe 15 minutes afterwards. We talked for about a half an hour before we went live.
Yeah.
And it was really humbling, because normally you do an interview like that and you say, let me explain to you a little bit about what we do here at the Lifeboat. There was no need for that whatsoever.
Nope.
Dr. Jetler had a real handle on what we were doing on the lifeboat. This guy had spent, time watching some of the videos, which was humbling. And he just loved the fact that all of you are so invested in helping and taking care of all of you, right? Everybody literally cared about everybody else. And he would watch somebody come in and say, I'm just having a bad night. And, on the lifeboat, if you say you're having a bad night, usually the crew will descend upon you. And it will become one of those things that everybody really wants to do.
He just completely understood, and and like Tommy said, I think it come down to, we didn't have to explain what was going on. He knew. He could see it. He'd watched a couple of our videos, and even before we started the channel, before we started the interview, I'm sorry, he would say to me, he said to us, he's like, hey, listen, you're muted on your end, Tommy, so you know. Okay.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. But anyway, yeah, we just to have a doctor come on and really, give us confidence in what we were doing, because he agreed, and we didn't have to, we didn't have to like even over explain. I have to say, he knew, because he'd watched a few of our videos, and he's like, hey, he literally said this to me on the phone, because he was my doctor, guys. In case you guys didn't know, he was my doctor beforehand. But he said, the words come out of his mouth, I love what you guys are doing. That's all he needed to say to me. I mean, after he said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I know we're doing something different now. I mean, we got, and he understands. He understands that it's a real issue. People call it the disease. That's what he calls it. And whether people agree with that or not, that just shows you the level of understanding that the man has. He wants to help people, and he knows that what we were doing before is not working. And I think that he completely understands that, and I really hope that people get and go back and watch that video. I can actually, I'll leave a link in the next video with all the technical issues we're having right now. I'm not going to try. Unless one of the mods want to go and grab it and throw it in the chat, they can do that. But it would be, beneficial.
They would probably have to do it really quickly because we're
at the end of it. Yeah.
I want to, I definitely want to thank everyone tonight, because you guys, this was most assuredly not a normal lifeboat because of the constraints. And I'll tell you something, people, if I had to do this show without the ability to read your comments, I'd quit in about 2 shows. This has been I'm not kidding. This is absolute torture.
I can tell it's bothering
you. Yeah, I'm glad at least one of us, could read what you guys are doing, because honestly, it's torture. You get so accustomed to interacting that very often, and we say this all the time, this should prove it. I mean, you guys really are, 3/4 of the show. So often we're pivoting off the things that you say. When you got to go up and run an hour without you guys, it's like, I don't know, it's a different feeling, and it's just not nearly as much fun.
Well, hopefully if this happens again, I should have suggested this because it just hit me. You could have borrowed somebody else's phone and pulled the live stream up. I didn't even think about that.
The only reason I didn't is because there is one other phone like here right now, but that phone is talking to who's ever screwing this internet up. So I was hoping in the beginning that he was going to be able to get on the phone and figure out whatever the heck was going on so that I could,
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well,
but apparently it is not meant to be. But people, tomorrow is Thursday. So going forward from this point on, Wednesday and Thursday will be our 2 nights off on the lifeboat, right? So the middle of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, that's our weekend. And we will be doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then that's our week. So tomorrow night, we're not on because we took off Monday. But those are going to be the nights off. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for all of the comments yesterday. Thank you for sending emails. If you're having a problem right now with drugs, right? My email is in the Dropbox. Captain Tommy Scoville. Mark's email is in the Dropbox. Reach out to us. When we read a comment and the comment says, I'm really struggling with this, our response is always going to be, you don't want us doing the back and forth in the comment section. There are bad people that enjoy reading about stuff like that. We would like you to have a little bit of anonymity when you're telling us what's going on in your life. So if you're there and you're hurting and you really want to get off dope, right? Or you want to get off food, or you want to get off whatever it is you're struggling with, if addiction is the problem,
pornography is a big one too. Yeah.
Please. That's super important stuff. And the number of benzos that are being found on the street these days that aren't benzos are absolutely amazing. If your drug of choice is benzodiazepines, we used to say all of the time, you can't quit cold turkey because there's a good chance it'll kill you. It's one of the few drugs on the planet that quitting cold turkey, if you're in full-blown addiction, can stop your heart. You'll seize up and it will kill you. That was usually our warning. That, and don't mix it with other drugs because it can kill you. Right now, you could do nothing wrong. You could take your normal dose. You could do whatever. If your drug of choice are benzos, don't buy them on the street, right? You really got to be careful where you get this stuff right now. In this town right here, they had a seizure of Xanax bars, and there was literally nothing in that bar that was alprazolam. Nothing. They buy diazepam because you can get it super, super cheap, and they use that as the base of the drug to press it into pills, which is Valium, right? And they might put 20 milligrams or 30 milligrams, and then they put in a little bit of fentanyl. And it's crazy. It's crazy. This is a dangerous time right now to be buying pills on the street, because the other thing is, if we don't badmouth drug use, we badmouth addiction, right? If that's what you're going to be doing, man, get one that you're never going to eat. You understand what I'm telling you? Get one you're never going to eat, because if you line these things up side by side, it's like fake watches, right? They look great until you stick them up against the real one. And then it becomes very, very, obvious that this baby's fake, right? When they're side by side. So if benzos are your drug, man, get one you're never going to eat, and keep that around, so that if somebody tries to sell you something, because if it doesn't look right, then you're literally just, you're rolling the dice with your life. And that's,
let me say hi to Cassidy West. Cassidy West. I've not met Cassidy, I don't think. Have you met Cassidy? Nope. Cassidy is in here. Cassidy West. I'm glad you're here. I just want to touch on the new people that stopped in real quick before we head out.
Please.
Dawn Morning. I think she's been here maybe once, but guys, just so you know, she has a hard time seeing, so she'll be typing in all caps. She has bad eyes, so please don't be offended if that's what she's doing. Please understand that. Sarah stopped in. There's a lot of. We had most of the people that are usually here, plus Dan V's here. Thank you guys for participating. I have to say, new people, when they come in and start talking, it really does. That's what me and Tommy, we love our crew, right? But we love to add crew, and
Amen.
So yeah.
This is every YouTube channel out there would like their community to grow.
Kylie just jumped in there. Sorry,
stay alive.
Yep.
It's a little bit different here. It's we really want to get as many people in here as we can, because this is life and death stuff.
And hello, Kylie. She just stopped in here for the first time also. She just typed it in. And guys, sometimes...
Welcome to the lifeboat. Thank you so much.
And sometimes that's all it takes, guys, is a simple hello and to talk about this, to let somebody have the confidence to speak in the chat. And thank you, crew, for doing that, because me and Tommy can't do that very often. And you guys are the ones that make them feel comfortable by your guys' conversations. So, yeah.
True story. So we will be back tomorrow. Oh, no. We will be back Friday night. I'm sorry. Tomorrow night I am going to a VIP party. Somebody that actually came up with the concept of Hot August Nights reached out to me and gave me his, +1. Like the founders of Hot August Nights can invite one person, and I got the invite. So I'm going to be going and meeting all of the people that came up with the concept. If you don't know Reno, it's one of the largest car shows on this side of the planet. It's every August, and it's just vintage 50s and 60s cars. It's absolutely amazing. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow night. I will be back with Mark on Friday, and we will be doing that voodoo that we do. So between now and then, people, you have one assignment, right? Reach out and try to save somebody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And people, this is a cat in a basket. There you go. And if you're new here, we always end with a cat in a basket. Because at some point along the way, I promised that there would always be cat in a basket. Not sure how that started. All righty, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night. God bless. We love you. Thanks for stopping by.